Respected resource person of the day, Mr. Khurshid Ahmed, and all my dear participants of 7-day international webinar. A pleasant evening to all of you. I, George, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, is very much happy and honored as well as on behalf of the department and management of Yokshetra Institute of Management Studies, Kerala, in the conduct of 7-day international webinar on the topic Emerging Trends in Commerce. Here we are at the 6th day of international seminar, and the session is on IT implications in international banking and common threats by our respected and dearest resource person, Mr. Khurshid Ahmed. To officially begin today's session, I invite Ms. Reshma Surendran to welcome you all. Reshma, please.
Okay. Thank you, George. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, George. Myself, Reshma, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce. With the greatest pride and privilege, I welcome you all to the 6th day of 70 International Webinar on Emerging Trends in Commerce conducted by the PG Department of Commerce, Yoshitra College. Let me start my duty by welcoming the prime person of the day, Mr. Khurshid Ahmed, IT Project Manager, Raymond James Banking Committee, Canada, who is here to make us aware on the IT applications in international banking and common threats. It would be unjust if I do not introduce him. He's completely new to India, and being born in Pakistan and having shipped to Canada, currently a Canadian citizen, with a graduation degree in economics and MPA in information technology. He is a seasoned IT business analyst and project manager in banking and financial institutions, with a wide working experience in Mid East and West, playing prominent roles as IT architect, IT senior manager, head of IT core banking system, and senior IT portfolio manager. I'm sure that we have come up with the most apt person to speak on IT implication in international business. And with utmost respect and pride, I welcome you, Khurshid ji.
Thank you so much, Reshma ji. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here and basically reflect on what my experiences have been in my professional life, spanning about 38 years.
Yes, we are expecting that, sir, of course. Okay. Now I welcome our director, Reverend Dr. Matthew George Variel, our principal, Dr. Tommy Anthony, and our vice principal, Reverend Dr. Lalu Olikil, to the session. Now, I welcome our head of the department, Dr. Matilda Dani, and all my dear colleagues to the session. Now, the soul of our program, our participants. I welcome each one of you to the session on behalf of myself and also on behalf of Yokshetra College, and request you all to take the best out of the presented opportunity. Now, let me quote the words of Benjamin Franklin. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. Hope you all get the best out of today's session. Once again, welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Reshma, for your beautiful message. Now, it is indeed very happy to invite Professor D.K. Rajan, HOD of Mathematics Department and IQSC Coordinator of Yokshetra, to deliver the official message as well as for facilitating today's session. Sir, please. Thank you, Rajan sir. According to David Brerer, technology innovations will be heart and blood of banking industry for many years to come. And if banks do not make the most of it, the new players from fintech and large technology companies surely will. Dear participants, with this caught in mind, now I shall hand over the session to our dear and respected resource person of the day, Mr. Kushit sir. Sir, please.
Yeah, it's good morning, everyone from Toronto. I basically am located northwest of Toronto in the suburb of Brampton. Maybe you have heard of the location, but just wanted to say to all the 200 and odd people who are participating, it's a sheer delight and an honor to be a part of this initiative, which I'm sure Reshma ji and George have put together. It's a small world in the end because I'm sitting probably 12,000 kilometers on the other side of the planet. And to be able to participate and contribute towards the general learning is a sheer honor. Thank you. I just wanted to brief you on my journey, which looks like just yesterday I was sitting in next to you guys as a student about 40 years ago. When I started in IT back in the 1980. And started with a small enterprise, a software development house, and then due to family reasons, I had to relocate to London, UK, where I spent some time with my parents, and then moved to Saudi Arabia in Riyadh, joined Citibank there. I was involved with with a system called the remittance system. Speed Cash was the brand name, and there I basically was the key person responsible for launching this remittance system back in 1990. During the and strangely enough during the Gulf War, to be able to not only send funds, remittances, remittance service to Philippines, but also to India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, a lot of Arab countries, the UK, as well as to Americas. And that was basically by collaboration with Citibank networks across the globe. It was the remittance that people, workers who wanted to do, and that was its maximum 72, 48, or 24 hours. Within that time frame, the funds would be remitted in terms of money being sent by people who were working there. And it had a special tag to it, which had a 200-character message from the loved ones to the loved ones. And that basically was the creme de la creme, or the icing on the top. You guys probably would not be aware, but with the technology back in the 1990, which for me, it was 30 years ago, but it was in its initial infancy, because if you can imagine that without the internet being rife, popular, or even laptops or computers being very common, I had to crunch the file, zip it, and send the file across through a software called Crosstalk at 300 baud rate, which is peanuts compared to today, when we are talking about megabytes and gigabytes and terabytes. We had to send this file, it was a text file, very controlled, locked, zipped, and then we would send it across through dial-up internet across the globe to different countries per country. And that basically would be opened up automatically with secure passwords and whatever. And then checks would be printed out from that file after due validations and printed, and then the TCS or the DHL people would carry all those checks and deliver it to the beneficiaries. And not only deliver, but also they would deliver the message in English, in Hindi, in Urdu, in Arabic, in Tagalog languages, which was another quirk in the machinery, which basically we embarked on facilitating. So for that, I was the project manager and the systems analyst as well, to be able to put it all together. This was under the auspices of Citibank then, and now it is called Samba, if any one of you are aware of the Samba Bank, which basically stands for Saudi American Bank. So that was the first international exposure to technology back in the 1990s. Obviously, it basically progressed, and now you have the Western Union or whatever, which is instantaneous. Uh, Moving forward, I basically went and joined a purely Saudi bank in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And there I started with launching the treasury system as a PM and the systems analyst. And it was basically for me, an education because I then immersed into a 15-year long association with Bank Al Jazeera, where I started with treasury, uh, delved into the FX money market, the capital markets, marketable securities, corporate bonds, and what have you. And then uh, slowly and gradually expanded to incorporate the retail, the corporate, the risk management, the financial uh, reporting side of things, syndicate, uh, institutional banking. Uh, and then finally, after about 10 years, I was able to launch the first internet online banking for that bank back in the 2002. And it's just 18 or 19 years ago. However, it was a first uh, brush with opening up the banking channels to the outside world or the general public. Uh, that basically, it's all good and good that we did provide a channel, an alternative channel to the public, to the customers to be able to do their banking. However, that also posed a challenge in terms of the first ever hacking. So we had hackings to the system, and that's where basically the cyber security kicked in, and we had to put in necessary tools to be able to mitigate and arrest all of those unwanted or hacking uh, uh, hacking uh, probes, penetrations that were happening. And we were surprised to look at the statistics where on a single day we had about 3,000 attacks on the system. And that is where basically everything started to come together. And today, you have the cybersecurity as one of the top most needs uh, and professionals who are conversant and who have a command over this particular subject are uh, are eagerly being sought by all institutions across the globe. Just wanted to pause here to take any questions if you have uh, before I move on with the journey. All right, I take that no questions at this point. Uh, I basically, after 15 years of doing work with one particular institution, it was time for me to move on. I moved on to Kuwait. I joined the lead bank there, which is National Bank of Kuwait. There I was responsible for 15 international branches, subsidiaries of National Bank, which basically span from New York to Europe, in namely United Kingdom, London, Paris, France, Singapore on the east side, and a lot of clutter in the Middle East, in Turkey. So I was looking after all their technology needs for all the international branches that they had. The common denominator was the core banking system, which I had experience of looking after in my earlier life at Bank Al Jazeera. However, here we had 15 such core banking the irony was that each one of them was unique and different and was not very well governed. And that was my responsibility to bring all the core banking to a common platform at a common level, or in other words, at the same version. Uh, I stayed there for a couple of years, but then there was an opportunity of launching a brand new bank in Kuwait. With all the experience of about 20 years in the banking arena, I was able to turn the boat around. I was the 10th employee of the bank. This bank was called Warba Bank. And from I joined on the last day of March in 2011. And luckily, with all the support that I got and the direction that I provided as the PMO and head of IT, I was able to launch the bank by November, which means that in about 8 months' time, we were able to launch a greenfield bank with 158 products and services. And the good thing was that the king or the Amir of Kuwait was invited to do the inauguration. My reputation exceeded me, and I was basically sought by another bank in Bahrain, which was actually owned by Saudi. This is the Gulf International Bank, where I basically took over the reins of implementing a digital transformation project, which involved a replacing of their archaic core banking, Midas, and we moved to FlexCube, which is an Oracle product. We implemented the same system. However, the footprint of this particular bank was international. As the Gulf International Bank, it had about 5 locations worldwide, spanning from New York, Europe and UK, the UAE, the Saudi Arabia, which was the headquarters, and of course in Bahrain. Then this was another avenue for me to basically be able to launch the bank with the support of teams and vendors in Oracle, in local vendors in Saudi Arabia as well as in UAE. And I was able to lead a team of about 60 odd people to be able to implement that at 5 different locations. There was a lot of back and forth in terms of the structure. It was very complex in terms of a greenfield bank, because this bank was operational for the last 40 years. And that's why the challenge was there. You had a data migration aspect to it as well. And of course, adding to it the new things, which is the digital platform in terms of channels, in terms of online banking, in terms of new products and services and what have you. After 6.5 years working at Gulf International Bank and successfully having launched and going into a BAU scenario, we embarked. I basically left the bank and joined a Indian-based vendor who basically I had involved them in Kuwait as well as in Bahrain and Saudi. I joined them as a director and I stayed in Bengaluru for close to 4 months. This was in 2018, before moving with my team to Papua New Guinea near Brisbane, Australia, where I was tasked to implement the same Oracle FlexCube system in 7 locations in the South Pacific. And I was based in Port Moresby, which is very close to Australia. However, every 2 months I had to come back to Canada, and that basically was very taxing. And I basically decided after a year to return to my family here in Toronto, where my family has been there for about 20 years. After having come back to Canada, I joined Capgemini. Maybe you guys have heard of Capgemini. It's an international, French-based international consulting firm in the IT, as well as in many other disciplines. I was given the task of a portfolio manager to run on managed services for about 150 applications that Manulife, which is a lead insurance company here in North America, and John Hancock is its principals across the border, south of the border, which is in the United States. I worked there for about a year, having taken over from a company called Sintel for their managed services for production systems, and was able to support the system on a 24/7 basis. Out of the 70 people that I was heading, about 60 of them are based in Pune, in India, and in Bangalore and Bombay. That basically puts a perspective on how global the IT environment has become, because now that I've been here with Raymond James, which is a large financial institution, it also has a banking arm. Its headquarters is based in Florida. However, the Canadian arm or subsidiary enjoys a lot of leverage in terms of being exclusive to Canada, and all the regulatory requirements are being met for the Canadian IROC and the FINRA regulators. Having given you a little background, a summary of my 40 years with IT, if there are any questions, then I can go down into the details of what I do and where I feel the entire IT is playing out to. Any questions? Anything, Reshma or George or anyone else, please? All right. I don't know if you guys are aware of the banking. I wanted it to be a interactive session. However, if there are no questions, then I can go on. Banking is basically what I see is that it's a service, a licensed service by the authorities, which basically gives everyone, the bank, basically a license to be able to facilitate banking needs. Banking and people who have background in accounting would understand that there are two sides of the coin: the assets and the liabilities. The assets of the bank are the loans that basically, or the financing side of things, and the liabilities are our current account and savings account, time deposits, and what have you, which basically we put the funds into a bank. The bank basically has got two separate business lines. And after the 2007 uh, credit crisis that happened, it's called the Black Monday as well, which basically resulted in IFS regulations, which deemed that the two arms should be segregated. One should not suffer from the other's dilemma. And that is where basically the governance aspect came. Today, what I see is that the risk and compliance subjects have increased to a level of being unbearably process oriented, and a lot of due diligence has kicked in. This basically has a fallout on the speed at which people want to work and don't lose their momentum. However, just to give you an analogy, I have a small project which is the LMS, which is learning management system for various courses that all employees need to take. And they're having a system from a company which has already supplied in North America and perhaps in Europe as well, their systems. However, uh, the getting them onboarded after the due diligence has taken almost 2 months for our company to be able to get them onboarded. And the project itself was envisaged to be just 2 months long, but it's now 4 months into the project, and still we are going through various risk management issues. It's process driven, and these processes have become hardened over time. And because the systems today are mostly on cloud environment, that basically poses the risk of having a robust system which is protected through firewalls, through checks and balances, in order to have a system, a viable system in place, which is not prone to such hacks. Uh, as far as all the financial systems are concerned, and that is not limited to finance only, all systems, including, unfortunately, our Canadian tax revenue agency system, has been dishing out about $2,000 to every Canadian on a monthly basis due to COVID for the last 6 months, starting from March. And that system 2 days back was hacked, and people were found to be abusing the system in terms of hacking and having ghost accounts and drawing those funds directly into their bank accounts. And that basically is is the situation whereby, if what they always say is that hackers are one step ahead, and that is where the challenge is, that people who are in cyber security need to be at least 2 steps ahead of the hackers themselves. The crooked mind basically thinks of all the novel ways of cracking the system, and people having knowledge of the system basically are able to find that loophole whereby they can creep in and play havoc. And this is not new, because every now and then you hear that credit card companies' data have been hacked, and the reason for these hacks is basically that they have algorithms, they have automated cracking systems, which basically first they get your details, your personal details, and then use those through automated algorithms to access all the systems that you basically interact with, or you have to, and in terms of banking, in terms of government interaction, what have you, and use those information to basically crack the systems and basically, it's the term that we use today is that people basically play a cloak. The system basically behaves or represents another person, an identity theft, and that basically is the key to being able to, for the hackers to crack into the systems, posing as a third person. And since these are automated systems, so the hackers are basically rife, and obviously today the environment is such that anyone sitting anywhere in the globe can go onto the internet, and because the delivery channels from all of these systems have become a common ground, people are able to basically expose the system to the negative side of things. Having said that, I basically feel that with technology comes a lot of responsibility in terms of doing preventive and thorough analysis of where the loopholes could be, and it's a continuous process whereby people, the planning people who basically put the systems in place need to basically visualize all the gray areas and try to arrest them. And it's an ongoing process, because every now and then there is new technology that is coming in. The pace at which technology is changing is at a breathtaking pace, which basically has rendered the speed at which the cybersecurity has to cope with. And that is where we basically have a situation where people in the planning, in the design, in implementing, they need to basically be wary and cautious at the same time of having a system which grows with time. It's a living system. It basically needs to be improved from time it is implemented to the new functionalities that constantly being added to the system. I have to break now, and because I don't have any questions, I'm not getting any questions or whatever, and that's where I am basically a little lost in terms of if there is anything specific that anyone has. George?
Yes, sir. Um, so basically, what can we do? Because in the internet banking and all of the technologies are coming in, we are facing a lot of issues. So we have to take a lot of precautions in protecting our own data. But from the part of the organizations of banking financial institutions, other than this firewall and all these things, what are the other things that can be done from both the ways, from the uh, financial institution side as well as from the customer side?
From starting from the customer side, customer credentials need to be they have to be creative in terms of the first thing is keep changing your passwords and your credentials. Make sure that it's not the same password and you don't put the passwords or your credentials uh, on a post-it note next to your laptop or your common place of a coffee room or whatever. At the same time, do not, again, the social media is also to be blamed, where people post everything about themselves on the social media, which is again rife ground for collecting personal data. And if someone has an agenda against a person, then he will basically hound him like a shadow and get all the details for that person to be able to, use their credentials and put that in an automated hacking system, which basically will try and try and try until it cracks the system. In Canada, for example, we have almost everything automated. All banking is done, on automated. If I have a check for a rental, I basically take a snapshot and on my mobile and deposit that check straight into my account, which is immediately credited. Unless, if there's insufficient funds or whatever, it will basically come back and say after 2 days that, when actually they did the due diligence, they found that the check bounced and the person who has issued me the check does not have sufficient funds. Having said that, it basically puts a lot of weight on the delivery channel. Mainly, it's the internet, which has to be, controlled in terms of personally ensuring that you don't have obvious passwords like the name of your cat or dog or the name of your birthplace or your mother's name or whatever. On the institution side, it's not just the IT and the business. The business is basically conversant with their business products and services. However, to answer your question, the information security department has kicked in. It is big. It basically houses all the cyber experts, and they basically have tools to protect and insulate the system from external negative factors. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was perfectly answered. And there is one more question raised in the chat box. I shall recite for you. So far, banks have struggled to produce technology that's quicker and smarter. But then, with the impact of fintech rivals, do you think banks can compete with them?
Uh, that is a very, very good question. The future of banks is a question mark today, because banks have got to be leaner, and you see from time to time that a digital bank has come up, a bank which does not have a brick and mortar building or whatever, and it's all online. And that is the reason that the way at a breathtaking space the financial market is moving towards. Just to give you a perspective, the young people here, I was speaking to them, who are like you guys, young and budding and coming out of their institutions, and they basically are into cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is basically ensures that you can go and do shopping across the globe without having to have a bank account in the first place, because these are multiple ledgers and it's locked. However, the concept is so brand new that even though it was first instigated back in the 1970s, mid 70s by two professors in Japan in the South Far East. However, it's still not taken off. But with the global business, and credit card companies charging huge amount of commissions, it is only time when banks are likely, I'm not saying perfectly, but likely to see their downfall. Because the world is shrinking in terms of, for example, I just ordered uh, a small device to measure temperature. I went online to a website and I booked. I basically placed an order for a temperature measuring handheld device, and I was surprised that 10 days later it was in my doorstep. And when I looked at the details, it basically came from all the way uh, from China. So, and the payment that I made was through my wallet, which is not a bank, but it's a wallet account, an online uh, telco company, which basically I can deposit some electronic funds into it and use that to do my purchases. So effectively, banks, they basically are riding on in collaboration with telco companies. The reason with telco companies is that they have a huge network of outlets, and that basically is something that even money transfer systems use. Uh, Banks tend to be governed by regulations which are very, very strict, and because they form a backbone of every society in the world, it basically tantamounts to being expensive. However, when you look at telco companies, or for that matter, small, online fintech companies, they are not, the rules governing them are not in place in that particular sense, and hence they can be cheaper, uh, swift, swifter, fast, and they provide a immediate, uh, you know, uh, gratification, if you can say, to the public that their services were provided, and with a notch on the quality of service, and they constantly do the improvement.
Yes, sir. I would like to mention the quote of David Berr, the co-founder of 11FS UK, uh, which I have shared at the beginning of the session. That is, his words goes like this, which I am adding to what is your point. Technological innovations will be the heart and blood of banking industry for many years to come, and if banks do not make the most of it, new players from fintech and large technology companies surely will. So I hope his words are very apt to the situation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes,
Agreed.
yes. We have one more question, or it's a suggestion that with the development of artificial intelligence, can such internet crimes be reduced?
It's a good effort. Artificial intelligence is something that is coming in very fast. However, the problem with banks is that I only touched upon a small incident whereby a learning management system, which is basically nothing but for employees and contract staff to do their regular courses into AML and anti-money laundering and compliance related courses, as well as for ethics and even now for COVID and all. And that system has got no financial implications. However, it does carry some personal data for the employees. And the process to onboard that vendor has consumed about 2 months' time through because of due diligence and process related things. Now, in this day and age, if you have if the bank is willing to onboard them, but the compliance and risk departments, they have to go through a process. And that process basically is very, very time consuming and process oriented. Artificial intelligence basically, or having a common data bank where a standards company, an authorized standards company can rate people or rate these vendors are available. All of this process of wasting of time and energy and money could be, curtailed and curbed. Uh, and that is where basically we all need to be lean and agile uh, to be able to not lose the momentum and the inertia and the velocity of people. I always trust that if I have 10 or 10 different ideas from where I am coming, the younger people have the advantage to think out of the box, and they basically come up with new and brilliant ideas which need to be listened to and adapted. Go ahead.
So there are two questions. One thing is that do you think that digital finance is a key to post-pandemic development?
Sorry, digital platforms are?
Sorry,
Sorry.
do you think that digital finance is a key to post-pandemic development?
Yeah, actually, look at us. I'm close to 12,000 kilometers away, and we are doing a meeting, a webinar online. I have never met you. I've never met the audience. I don't even know who the people are, but I'm actually live in front of the whole world, whoever is there. And this is what the pandemic is. Unfortunately, the statistics concerning the pandemic is very coarse. I would not use any other word, but just say coarse. The reason is that if you look at the history of such cases, and especially with this COVID, uh, people, they are afraid to go out. And I was just looking at the statistics of India yesterday. The numbers came out close to 70,000 people infected. Uh, this can, as you know, this can be symptomatic or asymptomatic. And people who are asymptomatic, they carry the virus and they infect their loved ones and friends and whatever without having to know that they already are, carriers. And that basically poses a lot of challenge. And people want to be, if they are informed and knowledgeable, they basically would like to prevent uh, being a carrier for infecting others, and especially their own family and children and what have you, and their seniors. With this pandemic, it basically has put, I would say, from initially it was like 30-40% people who would like to go online and do their banking needs or their financial processes. However, today almost 90% of people are having no other option but to do online. And not only that, if I try to go to a bank branch here in Canada, they are not going to entertain me unless I have got an appointment and the bank manager agrees that I have to I have no choice but to come to the branch. And uh, before the pandemic, it was very common that people would just pop into the branch and meet the branch manager or the staff to do their things. However, now it is next to impossible. Actually, phone banking and online banking is something that in Canada and in North America you can do all your banking needs, even apply for a mortgage sitting at home and getting a loan or credit card or whatever. It's like a flip of a coin. I think we have covered 55 minutes. If there are any more questions, I'm ready to take. Welcome that.
Yes, sir. Two more questions. I shall combine it together because it's more or less the same. So the question is like this: in the modern world, we try to buy things online and pay online. So, what are the precautions we should take? And with adding to that, we usually buy things through debit card and credit cards and other this mobile wallet apps. So, we usually tend to save these card details on the site. So, are there any measures to be taken for protection of such data?
Yeah, it's always good to use LLC, which is low limit cards. That basically has got just a 500 or $1,000 on it. If you are a regular user of online services for shopping and needs, like today, my kids, four of them, they order, through Amazon on a regular basis. They don't use the debit card because the debit card basically, although it has a limit, but it's not a good idea to have that because I have had bad experiences in terms of being hacked. It's always good to have a low limit credit card or a charge card or even a wallet account, which basically where you deposit the funds and then use that as a wallet to do your purchases. Saving it on the site is okay unless you have the SSL, which is security in place, and make sure that it when you are saving it is encrypted and saved rather than just saved as text. Obviously, this is something that a common person would not know because the moment you see the HTTPS, that is where basically you know that this is secured.
Yes, sir. I think one more question: will the online business suffer when the pandemic ends, or will it accelerate?
No, actually, like I said, in 2002, I basically designed the first online banking for this particular bank in Saudi, and it has not stopped. If you go to badge.com.sa, you will see that it used to be a static website with limited amount of service, and it was basically used for, account history and telex transfer or wire transfer or time deposit inquiries, mostly inquiries, and a little bit of services. And then we added a bill payment system, which basically introduced people to invited people to not queue in the branch and basically do their utility bills online. I remember that back in 1980s, the branch had a staff strength of about 50 people. 10 years later, the same branch had just 4 people. Everything was automated. And the reason was that the traffic was being shifted to either the ATMs or online internet. Today, you have out of 1 million people, probably except a handful, a fraction of people who are still insisting on going into the branch and doing it the old way. 99.99% are doing all their financial needs and shopping and whatever uh, the new way, which is on the internet online. However, human beings are social animals. They love to go to the shopping centers and feel the fabric and see the product firsthand. And that basically is something that you cannot never give up or lose. That people won't like to, no one loves being at home 24/7. However, if you remember that at a certain point in time, we were all, housebound, house arrested, on a lockdown, forcible. It is only recently that we are now able to go out. So, pandemic or no pandemic, everything is going to go online. And that is the reality. Just look at us. Whether it is pandemic or not, we have no other thing, choice but to do this online, the webinar. I have from morning 8 o'clock till almost 6 p.m. every day. I am on back-to-back Zoom meetings, and the time which 9 to 5 job is now expanded to include even more meetings and discussions, where in my organization itself, I am in Toronto. 6 hours flight west of Toronto is Vancouver, where my headquarters is, and I don't need to go, actually travel there. I have offices in Florida. I've got offices in Europe, and we are all on the same page on a daily basis. So definitely online is here to stay. Guys, you guys are lucky, because if you get into cybersecurity, into analytics, into big data, this is where the future lies. I think we are 1 minute over.
Yes. It would be like there is one more interesting question. That would be the last question for the session. Uh, you said that you had an experience being hacked. How did you manage it or handle it as an individual and as an IT person? Can you hear, sir?
Yeah, interesting. Actually, it was a very small thing. I hired a handyman to do some work at home. At that particular time, I was actually in Bangalore, and the work was being done in Canada, in my home. So he basically, said, do an e-transfer to this email address. Unfortunately, his email address was hacked. So when I sent the transfer of $200 to his account, he basically, since his email was hacked, someone else picked it up, and he basically played around with the system and drew 2,000 instead of 200. The good thing about the security is that I immediately noticed a strange behavior. There were two entries of 2,000 and 1,500. So I contacted the bank while I was in Bangalore. This is in 2018, and they told them what happened. They immediately suspended my debit card, issued me a new card, and also reinstated the balances that I had lost, and basically, put a black tag next to that particular email that I had done the transfer. So it was very quick, and although it was worrying that something like that has happened, but the interesting thing was that since I was doing the transaction out of Bangalore, the bank came back and said there's cybersecurity, and they said that the culprit was based somewhere in Bombay, who was basically, doing that. So you can imagine how bad it can get across the globe internationally.
Okay, sir. We are officially coming to the end of the session, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I invite Ms. Sandra, a second year undergraduate student, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good evening, all. I, on behalf of each one of them present over here, take the privilege to heartily thank our today's resource person, Mr. Khurshid Ahmed, IT Project Manager at Raymond James Bank, Canada, for his effort and those valuable information about the topic IT implications in international banking and common threats. Thank you, sir. Then I wish
Welcome.
to express my gratitude to our respected director, principal, and vice principal for conducting such an informative session for us. Then I feel gratitude to Dr. Matilda Dani, HOD of Commerce Department, for organizing the valuable session for this day. And I also thank our program coordinator, Aishwarya AB, Assistant Professor of Commerce Department, for coordinating the session in wealthy manner. And I also extend my thanks to assistant coordinators Mr. Rohit Ravi and Mrs. Reshma Yu and today's technical coordinator Mr. George Jose and all the faculties of Commerce Department for making the session valuable. And last but not the least, I thank each and every participant for their patience towards today's session and making it a great success. Thank you all. Once again, thank you.
Most welcome. Thank you.
On my behalf also, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable information. Hope our audience have gained a lot of information from you, sir.
Yeah, I'm privileged and honored for giving me the opportunity to speak to such a, you know, uh, silenced crowd, but I'm sure there are talents hidden there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to speak to each of them individually. I would have loved to see them and react to their ideas and questions. Thank you. And thank you to the faculty, the staff, the coordinator, the technical gurus there for making this happen and inviting me over. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All the all the participants and dear Kuchit sir, we are coming to the end of the session, and I would like to end the words of Brit King, that which goes like this: banking has to work when and where you need it. The best advice and the best service in the financial services happens in real time and is based on customer behavior using principles of big data, mobility, and gamification. With this, Scott, I would like to conclude today's section. Okay. Thank you all, my dear participants, as well as Kuchit Ahmed sir. Thank you so much for your valuable presence. And we shall meet again on day after tomorrow, that is on Monday, for the last day of the 7-day international webinar. The topic for the session is the business of data analytics by Mr. Raj Pillai, Vice President of SOL Analytics, UAE. Once again, wishing you all a great evening ahead. Thank you all once again.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Take
Take
care
care.
and have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, sir.